My name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. Last Christmas everything I thought I knew about myself, my family and my success shifted in the most unexpected way with one sentence, one question. For most of my life I felt like I was just there, not seen, not heard, in the background of my own family, while my brother Alex was the golden child, always receiving praise and attention. I was left in the shadows, barely even acknowledged, and I'd gotten used to it, but that night, that Christmas dinner, everything changed. Growing up I was invisible. Alex was always the star of the show. Birthdays, big parties for him, for me a quick card and maybe a Costco cake. When Alex got a shiny new bike for his 13th birthday, everyone was cheering. When I turned 13 there was no fanfare, just another day. Alex, 5 years older than me, always got everything: new bikes, the best private school, the fancy trips, while I went to the local public school with cracked windows and outdated textbooks. I'd ask my mom why it was so different, but all she'd say was, "He needs more attention, you'll be fine, Emily." It wasn't a compliment, it was the first of many times I'd hear her say "you'll be fine," and in that I understood that I wasn't worth trying for. I stopped asking for things after a while. I didn't need to be the center of attention anymore. My mom didn't really care, and Alex, well, he was always the focus, so I did what I had to do. I learned to code by watching YouTube tutorials. I picked up a dishwashing job at a local coffee shop. I saved every penny. All that money went into buying a used laptop. I built my future without asking for help. I built it quietly. No one noticed, but in a way that was good. It gave me the space to build my own dreams without interference. Every failure, every rejection, every moment I wasn't seen, it fueled me. I was accepted into the University of Washington with a partial scholarship for computer science. It should have been a moment to celebrate, but it wasn't. My mom's reaction was lukewarm. "That's great, honey," and then she moved on. A week later Alex got into Stanford. Suddenly the whole world stopped. They celebrated his achievement with a party, relatives calling in tears. Me, I packed my bags alone. But in that cramped dorm room I kept going. I worked my shifts at Starbucks. I learned algorithms on the side, and I came up with an idea, a simple app that helped people track their health. I called it Health Track. It wasn't perfect, the app was basic. I coded when I could, teaching myself, making every mistake along the way. I gave it to a few friends to try and they ripped it apart. "This button is terrible. Why doesn't it remind me to log my meals?" But each criticism pushed me to improve. It was a grind. I didn't expect overnight success, but slowly it grew. It wasn't much at first, a few downloads here and there, but I kept at it. Meanwhile, back at home my family continued to ignore what I was doing. My mom would call, ask how I was doing, but the conversation always shifted back to Alex. It was like my life wasn't even worth talking about. I would mention my app and she'd respond with a quick "that's nice, sweetie," before turning her attention back to my brother. Then one day I received an offer. A company wanted to buy Health Track for $50 million. I almost couldn't believe it, but I wasn't ready to sell, not for that amount. I had built this thing from nothing and I wasn't about to let someone else take control. I turned it down. My lawyer nearly had a heart attack, but I knew it was the right decision. Fast forward to last Christmas. We were sitting around the table just like we had every year: turkey, mashed potatoes, my mom fawning over Alex's business ideas. But this time I wasn't just the quiet observer. This time I had something to say. My brother looked at me, that familiar smirk on his face, and asked, "So are you still wasting your time on that little business of yours?" I took a breath and casually said, "Actually, I sold it." The room went still. My brother chuckled like it was some sort of joke. "How much did you sell it for?" he asked, still not believing me. I looked him in the eye and said, $150 million. In that moment everything changed. All those years of being ignored, it was all crashing down on her, and I was finally seen. The room went silent. My mom froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Alex let out a short laugh. "What?" he said. "You sold it." He did the air quotes again, the way he had when we were kids, talking about my little coding thing. "To who?" "A healthcare group." I said. "They bought Health Track." Saying the name out loud in that house for the first time felt strange, like introducing a stranger to a family that had pretended you didn't exist. Alex snorted. "Okay, so what you got? Like what, a couple $100,000? Enough to move out of your little shoebox apartment?" His face was bright red now, half from the wine, half from the idea that I might have actually done something real without him. "How much did you sell it for exactly?" My mom was staring at me, eyes wide. "Yes," she said softly. "How much?" I met his eyes and saw the challenge there, the assumption that he was still above me no matter what I said. I let a beat of silence stretch out until I could feel the tension buzzing in the air. Then I said, clear and steady, $150 million. His jaw literally dropped. It wasn't just a saying, his mouth actually fell open like his brain had disconnected from his body. The fork slipped from my mom's hand and clattered against her plate. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost comical, like someone had pulled a plug for a second. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then everything happened at once. That's not funny, Emily, my mom whispered. That's not a nice joke, you're lying, Alex snapped, regaining his voice. You're not that smart. Nobody pays that kind of money for some stupid phone app. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward them. I'd left the banking app open because some part of me knew this would happen. The balance stared back at them, a number so long it barely fit on one line. This is after taxes, I said quietly. After paying my team, after everything. My mom leaned in, eyes darting over the digits, lips moving as she tried to count the commas. Alex grabbed the phone from her hands, shaking, and started scrolling like he was looking for a trap door. When that didn't satisfy him, he snatched up his own phone, typing furiously. A few seconds later, I watched my own face appear in the reflection of his glasses, my head shot from an article. His eyes scanned the headline. I already knew what it said because I'd read it once alone at 2 in the morning. 26-year-old founder sells health app for $150 million. There it was in black and white. He scrolled and I heard him mutter phrases under his breath. Under 30 fastest growing mental health features. He stopped reading and looked up at me like he was seeing a stranger. My mom's eyes were wet now. Why didn't you tell us? She asked, voice shaking. How could you keep something like that from your own family? I let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. You mean the way you kept everything for Alex? I said, the private school, the trips, the $100,000 you gave him for a startup that failed, the way you forgot my birthdays or tossed me a grocery store cake while you flew down to move him into Stanford. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. That's not fair, she finally managed. We did our best. We supported you. We always know, Mom. I cut in, my voice sharper than I intended. You supported him. You invested in him. You built your whole life around him. You told me I'd be fine and then acted like that meant you didn't have to try. You made sure he had every chance, every safety net, every excuse. I built everything I have without a single one of those things. You don't get to play the victim now, because your invisible child turned out to be the one who actually did something. Alex slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses jump. So what, you think you're better than us now? He shouted. You think money makes you special? You're still the same weird little sister who ate lunch alone and hid in her room. You just got lucky. I stood up slowly, napkin falling from my lap onto the floor. My hands were steady. My heart was not racing. It felt strangely calm, like this scene had been rehearsed 1,000 times in my head and I was just hitting my marks. Luck didn't write a single line of code, I said. Luck didn't answer customer emails at 3 in the morning or refuse a $50 million offer because it wasn't right. Luck didn't fix your messes, Alex. Mom did. Over and over I looked at her, really looked at her. She looked small, defeated, like the foundation she'd built her world on had just cracked straight down the middle. You gambled everything on the wrong child, I said softly, and now you're just angry that the one you ignored learned how to win without you. My mom reached out like she was going to grab my wrist. Emily, wait, we can talk about this. Maybe you could help Alex invest. We're family. We should stick together. There it was not, I'm sorry, not I was wrong, just help Alex. The hierarchy she'd built was so deep in her bones she didn't even hear herself. I picked up my phone and slid it into my pocket. I did stick together, I said, for years. You just never noticed. I pushed my chair back from the table. The Christmas lights blinked lazily in the window behind them, reflecting off their stunned faces. Enjoy dinner, I added. Merry Christmas. And then I walked out of the house I grew up in, leaving my mother pale, my brother speechless, and 20+ years of being invisible sitting at that table behind me. The fallout from that Christmas dinner didn't happen all at once. It was more like a slow-motion collapse. I went back to my hotel that night, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the bed in the dark staring at the city lights through the window. I half expected my phone to explode. Immediately it didn't. The first wave hit the next morning. Long rambling texts from my mom about family and misunderstandings mixed in with accusations that I had humiliated my brother on purpose. A few hours later Alex chimed in, calling me selfish, ungrateful, accusing me of turning my back on the people who raised you. I didn't answer. 2 days after that, a letter showed up from a lawyer representing both of them, demanding $3 million as compensation for the years of support, housing, food, and education they had provided. Reading it was like watching someone put a price tag on a childhood they barely showed up for. I handed it to my own attorney, who wrote back in language much colder than I ever could have. He politely declined, then attached a detailed breakdown of my parents' financial records my accountant had pulled together, every tuition payment for Alex, every check for his failed startup, every major expense with his name on it, and a big fat zero next to mine at the end. He added that if they pursued their claim, we'd have no choice but to make those records part of the public record. The next message I got was short and frantic. We're dropping it. Let's just forget lawyers. There was no apology, just retreat. Somewhere in the middle of that mess Alex's life started to unravel. He was already fragile, furious that I'd passed him in a race he didn't even know we were running. He drank more, showed up late to his job at Best Buy, snapped at a customer who recorded the whole meltdown on their phone. The video hit a local Facebook group where people connected the dots between the ranting guy in the blue polo and the online posts he'd made trashing his rich, ungrateful sister. A week later he was fired. His new big idea for an online sports gear store never really got off the ground. Between credit card debt and a small business loan he didn't understand, he sank fast. My mom tried to save him the way she always had, refinancing the house, pouring whatever she had left into his black hole. It still wasn't enough. Within a year the house I grew up in was gone, sold to cover debts. My mom moved into a much smaller apartment. Her health started to decline. Relatives who had watched her worship Alex for years pulled away when they realized how badly she had misplayed her hand. That next Christmas I was in Hawaii with a small group of friends from the tech world. We swam, hiked, and sat on a balcony overlooking the ocean while I wired a sizable donation to a nonprofit that funds therapy for women who can't afford it. At some point my phone buzzed with a message from a younger cousin. She'd seen the article about me and wrote that my story made her feel less crazy for being the overlooked kid in her own house. I invited her to call me anytime she wanted to talk about careers, money, or just life. She did. I became the mentor I had needed at 16. Months later an envelope arrived at my office. Inside was a handwritten letter from my mom. She said she was sorry she had favored Alex, sorry she hadn't seen me, sorry it had taken a headline about millions of dollars for her to realize what she'd thrown away. She wrote that she wished she could go back, that she hoped one day I would forgive her, that maybe we could start over. I read it once, then again. I didn't frame it, I didn't rip it up, I just put it in a drawer. The truth was I had already done the forgiving that mattered. I had forgiven myself for not being able to fix her. I didn't send money, I didn't rush back in to rescue them. Setting boundaries was the only way to keep from becoming another one of their bad investments. I poured my time into my new company, this one focused on mental health and AI tools that actually help people check in with themselves. I told parts of my story on conference stages and eventually in a TED-style talk, not as a victory lap but as a cautionary tale about what happens when a family builds their world around one golden child and treats the other like a backup plan. Here's what I learned. The part one: hope sticks with you more than the dollar amount ever could. Your worth is not determined by how loudly your parents clap for you, how much they spend on you, or whether they ever admit they were wrong. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop standing in front of people who refuse to see you and build a life where you no longer need their approval to breathe. Favoritism doesn't just hurt the kid who gets ignored, it cripples the kid who gets worked too. My mom lost her house, my brother lost his job, his excuses and his safety net. I lost the fantasy that one day they'd wake up and magically become the people I needed them to be. In exchange I got something better, a life I chose, built on my own terms, full of people who actually show up. If you've ever been the invisible one, the "you'll be fine" child, maybe you don't have millions or a headline, but you do have a choice. You can keep waiting for them to see you, or you can start seeing yourself. And if you were in my place, what would your version of walking out of that Christmas dinner look like?